let me put my comments in some of the research that I've read over time with the social sciences. If you do cultural anthropology, you'll discover that there are records that, as from the earliest recorded and artifacts, mankind has always indulged in what they called mind altering substances. If they want to celebrate a wedding, a funeral, something, so they would make for drinks, fermented drinks from corn, wheat, berries, fruit, anything that would change. So this is part of the human being psyche that they want to change a mood for various reasons. So therefore, people seeking to change their mood is not anything new or
Right.
derogatory or anything unusual, but it's the means by which you do that matters. Unfortunately, Barbados has done it, has established a long reputation of the producer of some a very highly admired, highly accorded mood altering substance, rum. We're supposed to be the birthplace of rum. So we too have contributed to that. But the thing is that we have never sought to glamorize the use of rum and to intellectualize the use of rum, which is just as much a mood altering circumstances, obviously useful can be used for medicinal. Alcohol, let me talk rather rum. Alcohol can be used for medicinal purposes also, and it's used for medicinal purposes. But we never sort of glamorize it and normalize it like has been done with marijuana, right? And further, you talk about you talk about the legalized or legalized. While it has not been legalized officially, certain less than 14 grams has been decriminalized. The
Yes.
Barbarian public, to my mind, has if it's decriminalized me, is legal.
Yes. In their psyche.
That's how they've interpreted. That's why they smoke it
Yes.
so freely, wherever, whatnot. And therefore, I think what has happened, because it has been, I am told from all the studies that it has certain beneficial properties for mankind, like most plants are. But it's the quantity, it stays from apparently different alcohol stays in your body tape for 4 or 5 days or something. But marijuana, although you would know because you are a coach, you would know these things, but you might have come across it in athletic field for a week,
Yes.
3, 4, 5 weeks. So it's a
Yes.
different kind of fish. And my last comment on this would be that I am yet to know of any society group that has quote unquote normalized marijuana, that has prospered, invented anything to man, that have grown in stature, that have run big. To me, in other words, the people who use it for long, and by its prolonged use, it is said to have people are less productive, they have less edge, they're less motivated, they just want to feel good and cool out. So it has an impact on individuals and groups and the whole society. And I think that is what also Canon Rogers was talking about.
Better products. Glenn, you wanted to say
Yeah, I
something.
want to say that you touched upon some important things in your presentation. First aspect is you're talking about the Jamaica research that has spoken to the prevalence of early usage among children. I think we've also have similar findings in Barbia. 5, 6, 7 years children are using to go to school. You haven't used it and whatnot. And there have been some people who try to make to me invalid comparison between marijuana and rum. I remember as a little boy, my friends would tell me, you probably would have been exposed to it, Maxine, and maybe even Freddie. Your parents would, at Christmas or some special occasion, would give you a taste on your tongue, as they would say, for the worms. For the worms, but neither me nor any of my friends had ever gone to school drunk or had
No.
some coming. No, it
No.
was
No.
so.
No. No. No.
And the benefit of that was that you were not therefore intrigued by any special because you get. It was not forbidden, so there was no enticement, and therefore when we got to the age where we could drink, it was just part
It
of life.
doesn't. Yeah.
It
No.
was not a big thing. And
No.
the other thing, Maxine, too, you talk about your experience at the beach with those youngsters, and that is another matter. Those all my friends have complained to me when they go public spaces, wherever. that people smoke freely, openly, voluminously to people's dissatisfaction and discomfort, people who have allergies, etc. No, but there's also, they make no apologies for it. They're not discreet. They don't take other people's thing into feelings, public medical situation into consideration. And it made me remember that the question of the law prohibits smoking. This was a bill that was fought by Dr. Tony Gale, and I had to drive down the usage of tobacco in Barbados across the world. He launched for many years fought for anti-smoking, and the law prohibits smoking in public. Smoking, I don't think it talks about smoking of tobacco. I don't think it specifies smoking of what. So therefore, when people go in public and smoke like that, anything they're smoking is breaking the law. And when I went to school in August on Saturdays, they did not deal with law. But to me, common sense tells me that is an offense. And that people have, and even if you go to a restaurant, you're prohibited from smoking in enclosed space. So all those things are, if those things are not tackled after it then becomes usage, and then it's like the minibus culture. You decide, well, maybe it's too late, too far gone.
Barbados. And
But
I don't know if the authorities have done any research to try to identify the rationale for that. Go ahead, Glyne.
yeah, on the question of marijuana, there were frequent references mentioned made about the development of the brain. It has been established scientifically. A person's brain is in a stage of development until about the age of 20. So anything happening in that interval can impact negatively the development, the physiological and other development of the brain. On the other hand, I hate these. I do not appreciate those people who try to deflect when you're trying to analyze and deal with a new phenomenon, which called marijuana use is still a relatively new phenomenon in Barbados. They bring it in, they try to deflect by bringing in rum. We have had a cultural exposure to rum over centuries. We understand the impact of rum because of usage and long association, experience, observation better than we do with marijuana. On the other hand, when person drinks rum, most people, there's usually a smell after a while if you use it. So they're triggers, they're detections. But there are people who can use marijuana and there might not be any smell. There might be signs in their eyes. What about the question of driving under the influence of marijuana? Are they driving under the influence of alcohol? So all these are new aspects of national life that we have to pay attention to so we can be able to manage this process and this development in the best way possible.
And I think we need to start looking
For,
at how these things impact us
for,
here in
for,
Barbados. Go ahead,
for,
Glyne.
yeah, you're right, but there have been enough. There's been enough disclosure by the National Council of Substance Abuse and other agencies, which have clearly said that children 5, 6, 7 have been admitting, have been given information which indicate that they're at home, they're exposed to marijuana from very
Yes.
early its existence and its usage by itself and people in the family. So it is clearly a part of national life in certain circumstances. So therefore, so we don't need to reinvent it in that regard. And
Okay.
one has to wonder what impact this has when children go to school and their behaviors. They want to fight, they're aggressive, they're sleepy, because they might have been innocently exposed to it, and it triggers certain reaction. And then to not all marijuana in this world, and in the same way there's trade in guns, there's trade in marijuana internationally. And people in the illegal or drug abuse world, they're looking for what they call new highs, better highs. And they're persons who go into labs. So not all marijuana in this world, when you see in Canada and North America, where they have the marijuana shops which are legal, is growing naturally. They're growing in labs, right? Uh, and there are people who experiment to look for the latest high because it's a business. If you get the latest high, you create a demand for that because you get a longer lasting or new high,
Yeah.
and that is where the intervention, the intrusion of substances to create the high that somebody come to harm people and cause the damage and death for one. So it's a complex situation. Not all so-called marijuana is one growing naturally in the ground. Some of it is created in labs like other things.
I would add the rum to it and it would ferment for the entire year before it's for the great cake use. But I think we need to pay attention to the impacts any of these things are having from an abusive standpoint. And I believe that we can only caution and warn people and inform people about these things and leave it up to the individual to make the decision. Go ahead, Glyne, and I'm just going to
Yeah,
put the
yeah.
video up
I
for
just I just want to say that people have been seeking to glamorize marijuana. It is natural from God. It gives you creativity, great imagination. You can write, you can create. Okay, I said fine. Like I hinted at earlier, show me a society, show me a group in the Caribbean or Israel that has had this prolonged, widespread use of marijuana. Show me how they have prospered. Show me how their education has improved. Show me how their productivity is, what factories, what creation they've come. Show me how they made themselves more wealthy by usage, not by people who are selling it, and then I would take it seriously. So I'm not. So Jamaica probably has the longest prolonged use of marijuana in the Caribbean. What has it done for Jamaica as a nation? Has it made it more Has it made it more wealthy? Has it been able to counteract the ill effect of the prolonged IMF programs in Jamaica all the years? So Barbados is the same. So they're trying to, like say, deflect it. But when you look at the bare bones of it, like you said, like the effects are lethargy, lack of energy, lack of focus. How can you focus in the world of education or work if you have those ill effects on your mind, body, and spirit? First of all we talk about technology. Mankind has always had some form of technology. One day I will do a program on that. From when he first made his first tools out of rocks, they had iron and glass, printing, all those are technologies which men invented to make life better for them. So we've always have, this is not the first area of technology. The printing press, the internal combustion, all those are manifestations of technology. But what has happened, and I only last week I was listening to the BBC and also some English news, England is now going back to paper and pencil and chalk. They have found, like you said, Alwyn, that you've probably heard me talk about the benefits of early stimulation. You talk about the same way a child in its mother's womb can suffer from the ill effects of drugs, smoking. Okay? A child can benefit from stimulation, from hearing voices, music, being righted. So the earlier the child is stimulated, the better, because the life is based on stimulation and response. So what they have found in England now is that through COVID and war, through the adoption of technology, tablets and computers and all that, like Alvin said, when a child, and I know it from my own personal experience, my children deal with other people's children. When I taught my children, when my children were taught with a chalk to form the letter O, right? That wasn't true. But then when they put the hook on it to make it A, because when you write, it involves your body, your brain, and all is core. You learn. The reason why they can't write cursive and stuff now is because you don't get that on the tablet. It's done for it. It's intellectual and
it's
physiological
in your brain.
laziness. And you've heard me talk before that Steve Jobs and those fellas, Steve Jobs forbade his children to use tablets until they were 16, and then they had half an hour a day because it robbed them of that early physics stimulation of the mind and body. And so when a child goes to school and has not held a pencil or a piece of chalk or thing, it's at a severe disadvantage because a teacher doesn't have time to. Those are the basic things that parents themselves can teach their children at home. But then I was told by some teachers, one of the reasons why it's not happening is that some parents themselves cannot read or write. So therefore, they are not capable of teaching their children. But I'm saying that in the same way we have community nurses and community health, we should have people who could, through the social service, go to a house and examine the house And if their parents can't read all right, teach them, give them kind of exposure to get them past the hurdle. Otherwise, it will always be reflected in the lives and achievement of their children. And
Well, let's.
one last thing, Ferdy. I think we have to go back to appreciate that education is not about fun. This idea your school must be fun. Learning can be satisfying, is to be satisfying. You get pleasure and quote unquote fun out of achieving something. A problem you can get done, but you say, I got it. That not that you must be laughing and having and making lighthearted. And we have to go back to excellence. Excellence in education is not to be determined bourgeois and poor grade and elitist and colonial. Those are the building blocks of any society. And once we get rid of this phobia, this false narrative that the colonial system and anything that flowed from it was wrong for Barbados. Even in those days, people they were going when it was the days of a colony, but there were people who left Barbados seven standard boys. I went to university boy and did well. Those men can learn Greek and Latin, could speak it and write it. So
Mhm.
there is an inherent the point I made, there's an inherent benefit in being educated, period. And
Yes,
that is
yes,
not to be left to some people, it's not meant to be a punishment, it's part of a natural phase of your life.
to have. Well,
One quick comment, Freddie. You mentioned brandy. I'll tell you, brandy, one of the reasons why your parents would give back brandy is regarded from my knowledge, from my research and information, as one of the most potent stimuli. So the reason if somebody feeling low or poorly, the reason why they would be fed a bit of brandy is to help to revive this. It would have a positive impact on your body and your mood, etc. That's the reason. So there's science type from what I recall
yeah, yeah.
to the use of brandy. But I'd like to get back to education if you can.
Saying that if anybody has to stay in school longer, is those children who start at a lower end of this 11 plus exam.
Right.
So it's not about keeping them back, but making sure that they have appropriate instruction and assistance to
Ferdy,
address their particular challenges.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, go, yeah.
talk about being kept back. When it was at Cormier, we had a same, I think 3 year or for alpha remove, right, and that was supposed. But there were some people who went through that system and excelled. One of the people who went in that system, believe it or not, was the late Dean Harold Critchlow. He fell into that for some reason, and then he came out of it and then became a very strong academic intellect. So, but you have to take them, have a system, prepare to, they will not get off their own, to facilitate, to make that, and both him and a number of other persons who went through came out much better off and how to do great in other areas. So it can be done, it has been done, but it will not happen by itself. It has to be programmed. And the last thing about the technology, you have an education is that technology is a business. Business when a lot of the technology that's been sold to us in programming is a deliberate probably on behalf of the developer to sell their goods and services. They make the money, right? So they will come and make a conversation. You need to get this, you get it, I don't be left behind, and then you like matching rate. Your rate is not necessary. They remember. I probably made reference for this today already in a previous program. When they remember the big ballyhooed, much ballyhooed year 2000. Remember when the year 2000 it was supposed to confuse technology and things would come to halt and that would function. I remember the people came from the United States to want to have all kind of programs that would monitor the computers at the police and the fire service, the airport, the hospital. And you need it was a mania. And Prime Minister asked us to set up a committee. I was the chairman and the late Darcy Boys was the vice chairman. And when we looked at it, he said, this is people trying to hoodwink you. They want to sell you all kind of $1 million equipment. And when you look at it, we said, your watch changes at 9 to 10, 11, 12, and nothing happened. It is just a machine that will change a date like any other machine, and nothing will happen. So we never spent a cent. We just monitored, had a committee, But I mean, so if you don't have it, they will sell you things just like they went to Africa and so on. Parts of the world sell them guns and dynamite and gunpowder. That is they are making money. If you
It's
fall for
money.
it,
It moves to the next one.
that's a good point. Always making because this we need to be able to provide for private, so-called private lessons.
Yes,
People are
yes.
very, we have to create our own internal system. What might be considered private and build into the system that process, that structure that will help bring those children along. Because some of the differences the children do well at CX or 11 plus because of the private tuition they get from home. We must make it private, public, so that they too cover the base. And I will never feel good about Barbados again until I know we've virtually eliminated illiteracy. We should never be satisfied with illiteracy at any level at all. We've done too well in education in the past to fall to that level again.
Go ahead, Glyne.
Okay, all right. I have another aspect, a couple of aspects on this. First of all, I think the government appointed 3 spiritual advisors. I haven't really heard more about them since they were appointed. Not only that, there's a minister responsible for religious affairs, Colin Jordan, who himself is a practicing Christian, of the Seventh-day Adventist faith. Would these things not normally have gone to them or passed through their hands, or they might not have had sight of them, some kind of insight? And therefore, Marcia, you would know what I'm talking about when I'm concerned. Therefore, this indicates a wider problem. You hinted to it just now. The quality of cabinet papers. This would have had to be in a cabinet paper to make it way through the system to get to Parliament. And normally, from my experience, Hawkeyes used to be very careful attention used to be paid to the process of the structure, the information of a cabinet paper before it met cabinet. And if there should have somebody who would, as the cabinet paper was being prepared, and before it got to cabinet, even when it was drafted for a cabinet, before it was be approved to come to cabinet, somebody should have said, wait, we have not had, this thing has not been concluded yet. There's a dispute. What is the government's position? What is the legal advice? For it to make its way through the system, to actually go to Parliament, and there are deficiencies in the process. It makes one wonder, therefore, about the quality of, because I know from experience that if things, one of the benefits of bureaucracy, for those who don't understand how the services used to work, and I understand it's no longer as structured the process as it was back then in our time, where you'd have a cabinet paper with the doc prepared to go to cabinet to deal with a matter of national interest or importance. A junior officer of a junior AO 1 or 2 would draft it, then would go to the higher 1, then it will pass through the senior, and it goes to the line so that by the time it gets to the cabinet secretary, it has been vetted. And the reason is that there are people with different level of experience who will spot deficiencies and defects before it goes to the whole room. But it seems to me, I'm astounded that the system has been so diluted and destroyed and fractured and ignored that somebody just would go through the system where it is clear that the process was not completed. And if the process were not completed, how come it get the cabinet? And then Marcia said we've had several instances of somebody at cabinet, Minister Jordan, somebody. And normally, if he was not the minister, then someone who was presenting the paper, somebody, the prime minister or somebody around the table say, what about this? Have you checked that? And it might be withdrawn, postponed, for that remedial work to be done, to fill that void, then you have a proper, complete document. This has not happened in this case, and it really is quite astonishing.
Then to have to come back and retract or whatever, because that is what is happening now.
But for quickly, Marcia, you may reference to the permanent secretary writing back. But the way how the system is supposed to work, you could not just take the permanent secretary's word. That should go to the Solicitor General's office or the Attorney General, where the law can help examine to see whether it was enough to just take the word of the ownership of land. Free and unfettered ownership and title, clear title, as they say, would have to be established before it can be disposed of. So the system has either been broken down or maybe the IMF made them fire too many people, so they don't have any people to go through that phase stages, and everything is short-circuited system. But I'm saying the word of a permanent secretary should not be enough unless he had gotten an opinion on the Solicitor General of the Attorney or the Attorney General's office to say what is the legality of the ownership on this transaction.
Right.
So it's wrong on several fronts.
But
If I'm wrong,
Maxine,
Martin, correct me.
is respected in the country as an entity that contributes to community development, etc., etc. And for the government to act in this manner to me is very insulting and very disrespectful. Go ahead, Glyne.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I spoke so strongly about this matter is that, as Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office, religious matters fell under that portfolio.
Yes, he was.
And I had day-to-day responsibility for that. Maxine talked about the restoration of properties, etc., settlement of the Anglican churches. I chaired that process. I was intimately involved in returning buildings or dealing with property belonging to the Anglican Church, the Moravian, all of them that had any connection with the government and the usage by the society. And I remember very well how thorough, how tedious and careful we were to make sure that we dot across our T's to make sure that, because we appreciated the contribution of the churches to Barbados' development. And we treated them with respect and care and to make sure they were properly treated. They were not unfair. And therefore, with a practicing Christian as minister responsible for these affairs, with 2 or 3 spiritual advisors at the behest of government, we thought that this was something we been covered at all angles, all advice sought and received and given and acted upon. So for this, I don't know why I don't know if they were trying to fulfill a political pledge to somebody in St. John about that, and you're rushing it. This is shoddy. It's an embarrassment. But then we are a republic with no republic constitution, so everything else flows from
colleagues
of a bullion mentality that this government seems to have. That I don't care what you all think, we'll do as you please. So before we move on to the final thing, Glyne, I can give you the last contribution here.
Because I think I haven't been minister responsible for the social service for 9 years. I think from what I'm hearing and what I'm observing is that there's an attitude in this government that what we call the bureaucracy, Maxine, which meant certainty and regularity, and you can have the evenness because of precedence, etc. When those things are invoked, some people think that they come from the colonial past. Then you're slowing me down, you're frustrating me, you find excuses what because it can't be done. And unless you have permanent secretaries or senior officers who are ready to stand their ground professionally and put it in writing their objective, they're apparently, from what I'm hearing, tend to comply, some or even retire, because they don't want to be accused or pushed wrong because they seem to be frustrating and blocking the government. So therefore, that is why the checks and balances that preserve the integrity no longer exist, are no longer respected, because like I said, that all of a sudden now, those things that work in the past, particularly when you've come to an IMF program where people have been sent or posts established because they were not seen by North America as being useful, you have a weakness in the system, both attitudinally and structurally, that allows these things to happen.
This government. Glyne, I come to you first.
Well, I share his anguish. I share his discomfort, because that repudiation of that rewriting the whole profile and history of debt settlement in Barbados, either externally or domestically, had wiped out a history of which I was very proud of. Barbados had never before 2018 defaulted on a debt. Never ever. That was one of our proudest achievements. And for that to have been undertaken just to impress the IMF fund, and for that we must thank apart from the Prime Minister, Mr. Strawn and Dr. Agnes Burchard and Dr. Kevin Greenwich. Those are the architects of this work, and Moss and Best. But like you said, $1.3 billion taken out of the NIS with promises to refinance it. Maxine, have you ever heard any about the refinancing like that?
No,
No. It is,
not the restructuring, the way they did it and so on. No.
so that is still to be done. In addition, what also, and that was very clear that the manifesto pledge to win vote was to give this 25% increase in to what the pensioners, the one who had non-contributory pensions, which was a very noble gesture. But I didn't think it was going to be done at my expense as a pensioner who would have contributed to NS and never once had sick leave in all my years, never draw a cent, only then to be not given an annual increase. I think we still get that annual increase that the law was supposed to control. So I understand the damage, the unfairness that has been done to Barbadians. And nobody, people pretend it has not happened. You have an NIS where you don't hear a single word out of the chairman or the board. Things just happen. There's no accountability to the public. So I do feel very, very strongly about that. And I understand the problems that Mr. Howard has with that. And I think that we should put pressure on the INS to be cut. Sorry, I beg your pardon. And now SS, not NIS, to be more accountable to the barber. They owe it to us. They have a backlog of recompense to us. Before can I make one comment for the being the senior on this panel, I never thought I'd live to see the day that achievements, legal requirements, entitlements that had been accorded to Barbadian workers out of the Barbados Labour Party and the BW that came from it, where conditions of labor were entrenched in law. I never thought I'd live to see the day where they have been virtually totally abandoned, discarded, ignored. I will suspect from my information, the vast majority of the workers that are being brought in because they can be brought in on so-called as contract workers, where the minimum wage have been ignored. They've been exploited to the hilt. They're paying no insurance, NIS. They're paying no BRA. So nothing is being contributed to society. And this is coming from something which is called decent. The Barbadians workers used to make a big deal about decent work. This is indecent exploitation in this day and age. But we have got, again, thanks to our love affair with the IMF, we have inherited a mentality from that developed world where look at what President Trump is doing, where people's basic entitlements that we took for granted in Barbados are being discarded, repudiated, and these persons are coming for short term. They'll be used, they will go back home, maybe, unless they kept here, and Barbados will be, they'll be worse off, and Barbados will be no better off themselves. So, and then I heard the Minister of Labor, the Honorable Colin Jordan, say himself that the NIS, or the Minister of Labor, the NIS does not have enough inspectors, to go and check the books and documents of businesses to make sure they're making contributions to the NS. That workers are now expected to check for themselves, go online and check for themselves and seeing if the employer is paying it in an environment in which it is known that there's some employers that catch you checking and then they'll fire you. So it is a sad state of affairs, and I'm not sure who's the bigger culprit, the BW or the Barbados Labour Party. But I think that probably equally blamed because I understand they're very much in bed together.
Correctly, or am I missing something?
I think that's the only valid conclusion, because an evaluation had been done under Winarton, and the previous 65 had been set for a while. But because the shortfall, I'm not financial risk, but I went to school in August and I learned a lot every Saturday. That shortfall 1.3 has to be made up, but the only way to be made it, it make more people work longer, to pay a higher rate to try to make that. And that's probably no guarantee. We have to see if they can come back for us in some other form to try to bolster it.